8 luckiest people in human history. 1. Ann Hodges survived a meteor strike. Ann Elizabeth Fowler Hodges lived in Sylacauga, Alabama. On November 30, 1954, she was struck by a space rock. A meteorite burst through her ceiling. Hodges was napping on the couch. The rock split into 3 fragments. One bounced off a radio and made contact with her thigh. Hodges was the first ever human to survive a documented meteor strike. 2. Adolph Sax beat every odd to invent the saxophone. As a child, Sax fell out of a window. Another time, a brick fell on his head. Then he accidentally swallowed a needle. On another occasion, young Sax drank some diluted acid. He also survived a drowning accident and a gunpowder explosion. As an old man, Sax beat cancer and died peacefully at 80. 3. Osip Bernstein won his life in a chess game. Bernstein was a Ukrainian chess player. In 1918, he was arrested by the Bolshevik secret police. Bernstein was sentenced to death for counter-revolutionary activities, but an officer recognized his name. He asked the chess player to prove his identity. Bernstein challenged him to a game of chess. When he won, the officer was so impressed he let him go. 4. Leonard Graham Fuller landed 2 interlocked airplanes. On September 29, 1940, a mid-air collision occurred over Brocklesby, Australia. The 2 planes were Avro ensigns of the Royal Australian Air Force. Unusually, the aircraft interlocked after colliding. Fuller was the pilot of the upper plane. Its engines were dead, but the lower plane's engines weren't. Fuller managed to steer his plane and use the other one's propulsion. He landed both ensigns, and there were no casualties. 5. Vesna Vulović fell out of an exploding airplane. Vulović was a 22-year-old Yugoslavian flight attendant. On January 26, 1972, she was on board an airliner. It was passing above Czechoslovakia when it suddenly exploded. Rescuers found Vulović in the smoking wreckage. Despite numerous injuries, she survived. The Guinness Book of World Records recognizes her fall as 33,000 feet. Later investigators claimed it was actually 2,500 feet, but that's still 27 more than the average unsurvivable height. The exact cause of the explosion remains unknown. 6. Roy Sullivan survived 7 lightning strikes. Sullivan was nicknamed the human lightning rod. His dubious feat is recognized by the Guinness World Records. Sullivan's was first struck in 1942. He was running through a storm in Shenandoah National Park. Additional strikes followed in 1969, 1970, 1972, 1973, 1976, and 1977. Sullivan died in 1983 at the age of 71. 7. Leonard Thompson. In 1922, doctors took a calculated risk to save a boy. 14-year-old Leonard Thompson was diabetic. He only weighed 65 pounds due to a starvation diet. This was the only treatment available at the time. The doctors injected him with an experimental substance, insulin. The first round of injections caused an allergic reaction, but after 12 days of tinkering, a pure insulin was extracted. Thompson's recovery was immediate. Within a month, newspapers were touting the new miracle drug. 8. Louis Zamperini survived a gauntlet of horrors. Zamperini was an American Olympic runner. In 1943, his plane crashed into the Pacific. Zamperini and 2 other survivors weathered hunger, thirst, heat, storms, and sharks. They were strafed by Japanese warplanes. After 33 days, only Zamperini and another man survived. 2 weeks later, they were captured by the Japanese. Zamperini remained a POW until the end of war. The camp sergeant hated Zamperini. Other prisoners were ordered to punch him in the face for 2 hours, but the former athlete survived the beatings. He lived to 97 and wrote a best-selling memoir. Zamperini died peacefully in 2014.